Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Let's go ahead and wrap up my month of November. Overall, it was a pretty successful reading month. I finished 6 different books, which I was really happy with. You never know with Thanksgiving and holidays and all of that, how much reading I'm going to get in. So I was really happy with how much I finished. And the first thing I read this month was The Lost Metal by Brandon Sanderson. This is the final book in the Mistborn Era 2 saga. And overall, I liked this book. I gave it 3-star ratings, which, you know, I know star ratings are a little subjective for everyone, but for me, that means I liked it. I didn't love it. I was slightly disappointed in the ending we got here. I had some big problems, specifically with one character and the kind of the arc they went on in this last book. And I know in general, Era 2 is maybe looked down a little bit on compared to Era 1, but for the most part, I really thought it lived up to the standard that Mistborn Era 1 set. And so to get this last book, I was definitely a little let down. I know this book is a little weird. I think it was kind of tacked on to the end of Era 1 after Era 2 was already kind of an addition. It wasn't even supposed to be a thing initially. And, you know, I think that overall, it's still a good story. And I don't know. I think there were some things that I expected to get resolved here and didn't. And maybe those will be things that in the next era of books we'll kind of get more information on and kind of flesh some of the world details out that I would have liked. But overall, I was pretty happy with it. Like I said, 3 stars. But there definitely was some things that could have been improved on. So yeah, you know, not the ending I would have wanted, not the kind of epic scale, not even epic, but just not on the scale I really wanted from it. But, you know, I am going to miss the characters. Some of them really did grow on me over time. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the next era of Mistborn really now. I think that it's really going to be important to the wider Cosmere, so that'll be interesting to see where that goes. Next up, I read Impact Winter Season 2, and this is an Audible original series. I think a couple years ago, with the first iteration of this Impact Winter, Audible really pushed this book hard. I saw advertising for it all over the place, and I really liked Season 1. I thought the story was really interesting. It kind of, you know, had scary vampires and just, I don't know, it played on tropes that I enjoyed and really liked. And this is definitely a huge letdown for me. Season 2 was nowhere near as good, and there were story choices I didn't like. I have a whole review for this if you want to see more in details for it, but I didn't like that. The plot was a little strange. And then the worst part, you know, this is an audio experience is what they call it. And the noises that happen in this story, there are some very wet kissing noises that happen. It sounds like somebody's like chewing and licking, slurping directly into your ears. And it happens multiple times throughout the book. And I just questioned who made this and sat there and listened to this and thought, that sounds good. And then there are also some weird things with, you know, I don't listen to my audiobooks at 1x speed. I listen to it at about 1.8. And there are definitely some moments inside of the book that when it's sped up like that, it doesn't flow as well. And, you know, maybe that's on me. If this is really designed to be at a speed, maybe add a disclaimer in there, but I could have adjusted it, you know, on the fly. But that's just a few little problems I have with it. I will probably give Season 3 a chance just because I still think the world that this is happening in is super interesting. But man, definitely let down after how much I really did enjoy the first part of this story. I actually would still recommend that you go and read the first or listen to the first one because I think in and of itself, it's a closed enough story that you can be happy with where it ends and you don't really need this continuation. I was actually kind of surprised that there was a continuation, so take that with a grain of salt, I guess. Then I went back to the well and picked up a Brandon Sanderson book and finally got around to the Secret Projects and started reading Tress of the Emerald Sea. This was a very fun, lighthearted, kind of cozy read. It took me a little bit to warm up to it. I probably until halfway or so through this book, I thought it was going to be a 3-star read, and I am happy to say that it did end up getting to that 4-star ranking for me. I really liked it. I really ended up liking the main character Tress and just kind of the story she went on. And I really thought the world was super cool. And I know Sanderson put a lot of effort into this world, and I think it showed. I thought it was really well done, and it was really good. I'm really glad I got around to it. And yeah, not too much to say other than, you know, it was fun. I'm glad I read it. Do I think it's a good Cosmere starting point? Probably. I think it probably works. I kind of waffle on it a little bit, but you know, I think this book, starting the secret projects off with a bang, was probably good for people who read them when they first came out, because obviously I'm a little late to that party. Then after Tress of the Emerald Sea, I read Starter Villain by John Scalzi, and this was also a super, super fun book. This is a more science fiction story. I kind of hesitate to even call it that, but basically a guy who's super down on his luck has a billionaire uncle who he's estranged with, who gets involved with the business once that uncle dies. And it's a fun story. It's not too long. It's not going to break your brain. This is really like an action movie in book form, you know, one of those popcorn movies, popcorn book that, you know, you're just going to be able to listen to, read, and enjoy and just have fun with it. There is a scene, I mentioned this in my review for it, with some dolphins. And man, it was just so funny. I really enjoyed that. It was just so out of left field. I wasn't ready for it, and I just thought it was hilarious. And maybe that is a little bit of a teenage brain that hasn't fully developed yet, even though I'm much older than that at this point. But it was just really funny, and I highly, highly recommend you pick up Starter Villain. And after that, I picked up System Collapse by Martha Wells, and I had a comment say that this is technically a full-length novel. I tried to do some research and see actually where it falls in. And if it is technically a full-length novel, it is like razor edge making that cutoff. To me, this is basically a novella still. And this book is weird because it follows not the most recent book that was released. It follows 2 books back. And for me, that really messed me up. I guess I could have done a little bit more research and tried to figure out where it fits in. But for me, I don't like to do that. I like to come into a book really not knowing anything and just kind of reading it. And so that kind of messed me up. And in general, I really felt like this was kind of a retread for a lot of things we have seen with Murderbot. Unfortunately, I don't think it really introduced anything that new. I feel like Murderbot has been dealing with the same kind of emotions and feelings and has been trying to process those for a little while now. They're definitely a little bit more into the forefront. I'm doing it again. I even say this in my review for it. I feel like I sound so negative about it, but it's still a Murderbot book. I still liked it. I still gave it 3 stars. I still enjoyed it. I will still pick up the next one and probably enjoy it too. But there was just something about this one that just, it let me down a little bit. And I think with the next iteration of Murderbot, because I'm sure there's going to be more books, is I think the world itself needs to expand. We need to deal a little bit more with the corporations that are going on, and not this same Murderbot goes into a situation and has to protect humans, chaos, okay, they're safe, let's go now. I think that it needs to expand a little bit there. And so once again, I feel like I sound so negative when I talk about this book, but I did like it. It was still good. Like I said, 3 stars for me on that. And then after that, I went back to Brandon Sanderson again. If you can't tell, I have read a lot of Brandon Sanderson this year. I'm trying to read all of the Cosmere this year. And that means I needed to read Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. This might be a hot take because I don't think too many people have this, but as of right now, I haven't read Secret Project 4 yet, The Sunlit Man, but this is my favorite of the 2 so far. So I do like Yumi and the Nightmare Painter more than Tress and of the Emerald Sea. I think one thing that I really liked about it was the setting. The setting was very different. I don't want to even spoil anything that's going on with it, but I think that kind of Freaky Friday aspect to it, I don't know, it just really worked for me. I am definitely a little bit of a sucker for romance, so seeing that kind of, you know, element added to a Brandon Sanderson story, I like. I don't know, I've never read like straight romance books or anything, but man, I have noticed that I am a sucker for when romance is in a story, especially if it is done even decently well. So I don't know, maybe I should pick up some more romance or something. It just seems to work for me. But yeah, a solid 4-star ranking for Yumi and the Nightmare Painter from me. And then I am still working on one book, and as usual, it is a Janny Wirtz book. It is the Warhorse of Vastmark. I'm like 40 or 50 pages into that. Really, you know, I've really started to fall in love with this series. Her writing is spectacular. It's very different. It's very difficult for me to read. I don't know if it's the dyslexia or what it is, but I read it way slower. I already read pretty slowly because of the dyslexia when I read physically. And then add her prose, which to me just doesn't flow in my brain as quickly. I think that it flows beautifully. It's very beautifully written, but it is a little bit more difficult for me. But really enjoying that series, really starting to get into it. And what's great is there is like, it's 9 more books or something for me to read. So that is, super, super nice for that series. But I'll get into more of that series hopefully in the month of December. And I will go ahead and say that my book of the month for the month of November is not Brandon Sanderson. He has had plenty of months. It is actually John Scalzi with Starter Villain. I think this is just kind of one of the books that kept me from going into a reading slump. I think between Tress and this, it stopped me. When I finished Rhythm of War, I was kind of burnt out. I mean, that was such a monumental task finishing that, and so much is happening, and it's just heavy and a lot. And then reading those two kind of close afterwards really just kind of got me going again. And I mean, what more can you ask for? To just really enjoy a fun book, stays in its lane, knows what it is, know what it's trying to give you. It's great. I really do think you should read it. And definitely let me know what you read in the month of November down below in the comments. And just to wrap up a few other things, I did want to talk about manga because I have not read any. And that's weird for me. It's not that weird. Normally I read at least a little bit, but I have just not been in the mood for manga whatsoever. Even series I love like Berserk, Vinland Saga, any of those, I just have not had a care to pick that up whatsoever. So that's a little update on the manga front. But I do want to talk about some movies and TV that I've been watching recently. I watched more TV and movies in November than I probably have in the last 3 months combined. So I started watching the 1962 version of Dr. No, the James Bond movie. It's the first James Bond movie with Sean Connery. I love James Bond. I read all of the original books by Ian Fleming. Some are better than others for sure, but it's a series that for whatever reason I really love, really connect with. And so I started watching this movie. I'm actually only about halfway through it. I'm one of those people who can pause a movie and come back to it and not be bothered. But so far it's a really great adaptation. Book Bond and movie Bond, I've watched some other James Bond movies, but I kind of want to go through and watch them all. They're different. Sean Connery especially just seems a little bit more cold and calculated than the James Bond in the books, which to me is just pretty interesting. So there's that. If you don't know, there is a new Godzilla movie coming out. I am a huge Godzilla fan, so in preparation for that, I went ahead and watched Shin Godzilla, which is done by the original Japanese studio that came up with Godzilla, way back, what was it, 1952 or something, but I thought it was really good. Some of the action was just spectacular. Is it my favorite Godzilla movie? Probably not, but I do think it was really good. And sticking with Godzilla, like I said, getting ready for the new movie that's going to come out, I started watching Monarch Legacy. It's on Apple TV, and it's really, really good. If you are even a little bit invested in like the modern Godzilla King Kong monsterverse, this is kind of filling in some gaps in the history of that organization. And I think there's only 4 episodes out, so that's kind of all I've gotten from it so far. But so far, it's been really good. I have really enjoyed it, and I'm pleasantly surprised. Some of the CG isn't up to like movie quality, but I mean, in general, it looks really great. And I will say it's kind of a split timeline, one in the past and one in the present. I am definitely more invested in the past timeline. I wish we'd spend a little bit more time there, but maybe as the series goes on, I will kind of adapt and like both a little bit more. I also watched Pluto on Netflix, and one of my friends told me about this, and it was really good. I wasn't sure how I'd feel about it. It has Astro Boy in it. I have no knowledge about Astro Boy like whatsoever. I haven't followed it in the past or anything like that. But this is a anime that is super beautiful, super well done. The story is compelling and interesting, and I am really glad I watched it. So I would definitely recommend that one to a lot of people. I know Godzilla is definitely like a niche thing that isn't for everyone, but Pluto on Netflix, if you are interested in an anime, it's really good. And like I said, it's beautiful. It's just really good. So definitely highly recommend that. Me and my girlfriend have continued to watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It's fun. We are in like the last 2 seasons now, so we are getting really, really close to finishing that. It'll probably take us a long time because we don't watch it all that often. And then the other thing we are watching is Celebrity Jeopardy, because Jeopardy is awesome. It's always fun. And yeah, but that is my month of November. Like I said, really good month overall. I hope yours was good. Definitely let me know anything down below in the comments. And as always, have a good one.